The very evening of our arrival, some Indians came to Castilia begging him to cure them of terrible headaches. Castilia prayed over them, and they claimed to be healed. And here follows the most amazing passage of Cabeza de Vaca's narrative. Since the Indians all through the region talked only of the wonders which God our Lord worked through us, individuals sought us from many parts in hopes of healing. The evening of the second day after our arrival, some of the Susolas came to us and pressed Castilia to go treat their ailing kinsman, one wounded, the other sick, and, among them, a fellow very near his end. Castilia happened to be a timid practitioner. The more so, the more serious and dangerous the case, feeling that his sins would weigh and someday impede his performing cures. The Indians urged me to go heal them, so I had to go with them. Dorantes brought Estevanico and accompanied me. As we drew near the huts of the afflicted, I saw that the man we hoped to save was dead. I found his eyes rolled up, his pulse gone, and every appearance of death, as Dorantes agreed. Taking off the mat that covered him, I supplicated our Lord in his behalf and in behalf of the rest who ailed, as fervently as I could, blessing and breathing on him many times. The natives then took me to treat many others, who had fallen into a stupor. When we got back that evening, they brought the tidings that the dead man I had treated had got up whole and walked. All I had ministered to had recovered and were glad. Throughout the land the effect was a profound wonder and fear. People talked of nothing else, and wherever the fame of it reached, people set out to find us so we should cure them and bless their children. Up to now, Dorantes and his Negro had not attempted to practice. But under the soliciting pressure of these pilgrims from diverse places, we all became physicians, of whom I was the boldest and most venturous in trying to cure anything. If anyone did not actually recover, he still contended he would. What they who did recover related caused general rejoicing and dancing, so we got no sleep. Before anyone gets too skeptical of these events, it should be noted that several years later, when Coronado's expedition passed through New Mexico, Indians told them of 4 great doctors, one of them black, the other 3 white, who gave blessings and healed the sick. Historians and journalists call that independent corroboration. Were the healings real? Cabeza de Vaca himself admits that not all were healed, that the phenomenon, let us say, was real enough to be remembered by independent witnesses. There have been many witnessings, both ancient and modern, in every known culture, to healings very like these. It's a subject that discomforts scientists, because they've been able neither to prove nor disprove it conclusively. But there's too much documentation for the phenomenon to be dismissed. And if even only a few of these phenomena are genuine, if healings such as Cabeza de Vaca described are part of the human possibility, then the present civilized consensus, and its description of existence, is not only incomplete, but also inaccurate. Though they were the first to explore North America and leave a record, and though their reports inspired the Coronado expedition, which resulted in the European settlement of the Southwest, still Cabeza de Vaca and his companions are lost to history because they challenge our consensus, our description of reality. To teach of them at all is to at least consider the possibility that what they did was real. Their healings can be contested, but what cannot be disputed is that the Indians of the Southeast adored them. Cabeza de Vaca, Dorantes, Castilia and Estevanico, hoping to run into Spaniards whom they thought might be exploring north from Mexico, proceeded into West Texas and New Mexico. Some researchers think they got as far as Arizona. Thousands of Indians followed them. As Cabeza de Vaca writes, we had been badly hampered by the hordes of Indians following us. They pursued so closely just to touch us. Every Indian brought his portion to us to be breathed on and blessed before he would dare touch it. When you consider that we were frequently accompanied by 3,000 or 4,000 Indians and were obliged to sanctify the food and drink of each one, as well as grant permission for the many things they asked to do, you can appreciate our inconvenience. Cabeza de Vaca attributed these wonders neither to himself nor to his friends. He gave all the credit to divine powers working through them. He was as much in awe of the events as the Indians themselves. Therefore, though he found their adoration inconvenient, he never looked down on the tribes. In fact, his verdict on the natives of this land was unique in his day and would be considered radical for the next several centuries. They are a substantial people with a capacity for unlimited development. That statement alone makes his story out of place in an education system that taught, until fairly recently, that tribal peoples were not the equals of Europeans. Cabeza de Vaca, writing to his king, added a note that would go against the future Indian policies of all governments, including the United States. Clearly, to bring all these people to Christianity and subjection to your imperial majesty. They must be won by kindness, the only certain way. But when he finally came upon Spaniards, he found anything but kindness. With heavy hearts, we looked out over the lavishly watered and fertile, beautiful land, now abandoned and burned, and the people thin and weak, scattering or hiding in fright. They told us how the Spaniards had come through razing the towns and carrying off half the men and all the women and boys. We told the natives we were going after those men to order them to stop killing, enslaving and dispossessing the Indians, which made our friends very glad. As you can guess, they had no success with this project. When they found the Spaniards who had done those things, Cabeza de Vaca got into a hot argument, for those Spaniards meant to make slaves of the Indians in our train. The commander of those conquistadors, one Diego de Alcaraz, bade his interpreter tell the Indians that we Cabeza de Vaca and his friends were members of his race who had been long lost, that his group were the lords of the land who must be obeyed and served, while we were inconsequential. The Indians paid no attention to this. Conferring among themselves, they replied that the Christians lie. We had come from the sunrise, they from the sunset. We healed the sick, they killed the sound. We came naked and barefoot, they clothed, horsed and lanced. We coveted nothing but gave whatever we were given, while they robbed whomever they found, and bestowed nothing on anyone. He added, to the last I could not convince the Indians that we were of the same people as the Christian slavers. Finally it was time for Cabeza de Vaca, Dorantes, Estevanico and Castilla to take their leave from the Indians, both those who had followed them for so long and those who had come to them for protection. Here Cabeza de Vaca added his most direct and defiant note to his king. When the Indians took their leave of us, they said they would do as we commanded and rebuild their towns, if the Christians let them. And I solemnly swear that, if they have not done so, it is the fault of the Christians. Cabeza de Vaca and his companions journeyed south, accompanied by Spanish soldiers, and met with the governor of Mexico, Nuno de Guzman, in Compostela, where he made his report to Guzman and to the now aging Cortes. The governor received us graciously and outfitted us from his wardrobe. I could not stand to wear any clothes for some time, or to sleep anywhere but on the bare floor. I think of him in that interim, of how strange clothing felt to him, after 8 years of nakedness, and of how he could not bring himself to sleep on a civilized bed. If he ever used his healing powers again, he made no record of it. In 1540, Cabeza de Vaca was appointed governor of the South American provinces of the Rio de la Plata, where he prohibited the slaving, raping and looting of Indians. This caused deep resentment among the soldiers, his command. And finally, in 1543, they imprisoned him and sent him back to Spain in chains. He remained in prison for about 8 years, almost as long as he'd spent in North America, until his wife spent the better part of her fortune to free him. He died in 1557, at the age of 67 and, despite the writings he left, virtually disappeared from history because history could accept neither his actions nor his message. Had he actually been given the gift of healing? In answer we have to ask ourselves, why else would Indians have followed him by the thousands? It is certain that they did, for many Spaniards in Mexico witnessed it. Since this is the only incidence in the entire history of the meeting of Europeans and Native Americans when a white man had such an effect without military coercion, we must assume an extraordinary cause. That is what leads me to believe Cabeza de Vaca's account credible. But if he had such powers, why did they leave him when he was back among his own people? Perhaps because among his own kind his powers were neither wanted nor accepted. Or perhaps because he had to wear again not only civilization's clothing but civilization's assumptions, and only when all trappings of civilization had been stripped away could the healing powers rise in him. Perhaps that is why he sought to return to the New World so soon. But as essentially a military governor in South America, he could not recreate the conditions that existed for him on his first journey. Whatever the reason, it is clear that where others found, in the wilderness, Joseph Conrad's heart of darkness, Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca experienced the heart of light. Is that heart of light still among us? Is it still reachable in this land that is no longer a wilderness? This land where society is in such turmoil, and where people feel so frightened, angry and insecure. It may be because Cabeza de Vaca's journey raises this question that he has been and is still avoided in schools. Across the centuries, he comes to suggest that being human may be a state of more possibilities than we have usually dared to dream. He tells us that only kindness, generosity, and devotion are ultimately convincing, that they are the only certain way to reach across the barriers of our differences. He stands as a kindly, mysterious, courageous, yet disturbing figure, dangerous to our assumptions, challenging our limits. He had begged that his story be received as homage, since it is the most one could bring who returned thence naked. Instead, we have ignored him. Yet it may be that, more than ever, we need him now, need to tell his story among ourselves and teach it to our children, meeting his challenge, giving consideration to his mysteries, and living up to his example.